And welcome to a Stageworthy live stream. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I want to welcome everybody who is watching live. I am joined today by a who's who, a veritable who's who of Toronto podcasters. Joining me in this podcast are Janine Marley from A View from a Box, Alison Mullings from Creative Full-Time, Ryan Borochovitz from A Cup of Hemlock, and Alexandra Lean from Being Dramatic. If I didn't say it already, I'm Phil Rickaby, the host of Stageworthy, and we are here today to talk about the Toronto Fringe. All of us have our programs in whatever form we prefer, whether it is a digital format or if you're like a little analog version like me, then you can. That's how I like to go through and I highlight all of the things I like. And to get things started, and as we start this Toronto Fringe preview, I thought maybe the first thing that we could talk about before we start talking about shows that we're interested in, or that we think that you should be interested in, I thought maybe we would go around and talk about, like, aside from shows, what are we most excited about in this Toronto Fringe? Let's start with Janine. Janine, what are you most excited about?
Hi, I would say I'm most excited about the community. Like, I love seeing everybody out at Fringe. It's like the 2 weeks where, even though all of our schedules are completely different, we all know that we're all at Fringe. And I find that I rarely, even though I book all of my shows sort of like independently, I'm rarely actually seeing a show by myself. I have run into somebody in line. I've now made friends with somebody in line. I have, sometimes I'll end up accidentally spending a whole day with another critic because we happen to have booked all the same shows. And that turns into meals in between and whatever. And so it's very much about just getting to be with other theater lovers, running into friends. It's great. It's a really sort of communal 2 weeks.
It really is. And it's funny you mentioned meals. That is the one thing in my Fringe schedule that I always forget is to book time for meals. And at some point during the Fringe day, I will kind of be feeling bad. Maybe I'm like, oh, people really like this show. Why am I kind of mad about it? And I realize it's because I didn't have lunch today. And I think, I don't know, I see a bunch of people nodding about that. So maybe that's something we all need to encourage each other to do. Alexandra, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to going, as in for many years, there's always these events that I want to desperately go to, and I just can't, I never bring myself to go. But this is the year that I can go. I feel I have the energy, I have the time, I have some money to devote to going to see the shows that I want to see. So that is what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Alison, how about you?
I was going to say the people in the lineups. I love meeting new people in the lineups. You're standing there in the rain or the beating hot sun and just talking to people, seeing what shows they've seen and what's good. And this is my second Fringe as media, so I'm very excited to see as many shows as I possibly can and have my snacks and water bottle and bag.
It is such just being able to talk to people about shows is kind of the best thing about lineups, about going to the Fringe patio. Personally, that's a part that I really like hearing what people are really liking about a show. That's awesome. Ryan, last in the lineup, first in our hearts, I guess. I don't know. Thank you for being patient. What are you looking forward to?
I think something that was striking me this year is that we're kind of back to pre-pandemic numbers of shows, which I think is very interesting this year. Because last year, I think there was around 60 to 70 shows in Fringe, and I saw more than half of them, and that was amazing. And this year, there's a lot more, and I will try to see as many things as I can, but I made my two friends who I host my podcast with promise me at the end of our final Fringe episode last year to remind me to see less things this year, because I did definitely burn myself out on the volume of things I saw. And like good friends, they did remind me when the program first went out. But then as I look through the program, I'm like, I might see more.
I mean, that is hard because when the shows are fewer, you can see more, but more shows means more shows to see.
Mhm.
For me, the thing that I'm really looking forward to is I'm looking forward to see how the Fringe hub at the Young Center in the distillery shapes up this year. To me, I'm hoping that it feels a bit like the Mervish Alley. I don't know if that predates folks in this podcast here, but back when the Fringe hub was behind Honest Ed Mervish's store, that was a home for quite a while, and it really felt like a place where Fringe had put down roots for a bit, and there was so much going on. So I'm hoping that it kind of feels like a home there. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to that you would like to highlight?
Maybe the Next Stage series is something that is unique and different this year. I'm not sure if folks have opinions about this that they'd maybe like to unpack here on the air. But
I do
please,
actually want to get to that a little later in the
Sure
program.
thing.
I want to talk to that as a specific topic about the addition of Next Stage. So
Put a pin.
why don't we jump in? We'll put a pin in that for now, and we'll come back to that. If you're watching the live stream and you have a question or a comment, make sure that you use the chat, and we'll see that. And we can, if you have a question about something that we haven't covered or that we're going to cover, something that you want us to talk about, put that there, and we will see it and we'll be able to address that. So don't hesitate to use the chat. Let's take a second and talk about the shows that are on your lists as shows that you think people should not miss this year. Alison, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Let me just pull up my list. So I have a few. I mean, I have a lot. Here's my top 5 I came up with. So one of them is Almost Ever After, a new musical. It's by Andrew Siak. I saw Rosamund last year. Absolutely loved it. I had him on my podcast to talk all about it, and we talked a little bit about this upcoming show as well. So I'm very excited to see that one. I'm also excited to see People Suck, a musical airing of Grievances, because I think that title is all the marketing you really need. I think that's a genius title. I had them recently on the podcast for a virtual interview, and it sounds like a hilarious good time. So I'm very excited to see that one as well. Who Drinks Mocktails on the Beach? Spoiler alert, my top 3 are guests that I've had on my podcast. So I've talked to them about this show coming up as well. And I'm very excited for that one. It has some Fleabag vibes. And so I'm a fan of Fleabag. So very excited for that. The other 2 shows that I'm excited to see is Bob Marley, How Reggae Changed the World, and Apothecary. Those are ones just from what is on the Fringe website, caught my attention, and I'm very excited to see as well. You are muted.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I am muted. I muted myself and then didn't unmute. Gotta love the live aspect of the live stream.
That's right.
Those are I had a number of those people on some of the short interviews that I've done. Apothecary, Laura Pitchinen has a great track record as a performer in Fringe. So Apothecary is definitely a show not to miss. Also, Who Drinks Mocktails on the Beach, again, sounds like a show that is like, I love the title, and it has, like you said, that Fleabag style, that Fleabag feel.
Yes, absolutely.
Alexandra, would you like to go over your picks?
Yes, I would love to. So Alison did say the 2 that I have chosen as well, which my first pick is Apothecary. The synopsis really stood out to me. In a world built for men, women create community within the magical walls of a living sanctuary situated in neither time nor place. That just sounds like exactly like something I would be interested in. The other one that Alison said that I would like to see is People Suck, a musical airing of grievances. It just sounds really funny and basically sounds like my life. My second pick would be Reborn. A rising star lands the role of a lifetime when a mysterious double appears. Her reality begins to unravel. My why is always like the premise, just sounds really interesting and something I would want to see. Control-Alt-Delete, an alphabetical musical. The English language is downsizing and can no longer afford to employ 26 letters. It just sounds absurd and funny, and I love that. And my final pick would be David Lynch's Seinfeld. Just the title alone stood out.
Yeah, absolutely. The David Lynch's Seinfeld certainly sounds interesting, and also the People Suck musical feels like a return. I don't know. There's something to be said for a period of time where there was a what you might call a fringe title for a show, and People Suck kind of sounds like a throwback to that kind of fringy title, which sort of gives you the show up front and kind of draws you in. Janine, could you give us your picks?
Yeah, absolutely. So first up for me, I have Screamin' in the Rain by Eli Pashik. I saw his The Exorcist in Operetta a couple years ago, and it just absolutely tickled me, despite the fact that I'm not a horror fan. And so this is apparently a lot more of like a stand-up, but mixed in with songs. And he's just a wonderful entertainer, so I'm very excited to see that one. That was another immediate one where my fiance was right away ready to sign up for to go see that show. Next up for me, I also have Almost Ever After on my list. I love Andrew Stokes musicals. They are so great and so innovative, and so I can't wait to see what he does with this one. And I love a good like twisted fairy tale situation. From like my picks number 3 and 4, they sort of have the same reason. So I'm really looking forward to A Play We Wrote Just Now and Frat House Evicted. Both of those are drag shows. So A Play We Wrote Just Now is drag queens, Frat House is all drag kings, and Frat House has other guest drag performers in it. So excited to get to support local drag through Fringe. Like, this is just amazing. Just got to figure out if I need to bring my tip money or not. That's my only question. And then last up is Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl. I was listening to Rebecca's interview on your podcast, and I haven't gotten a chance to see her show. And so I'm really excited to go check it out. I mean, it's the 10th anniversary, so I'm like, heck yeah, I want to be there.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely to all of those. Ryan, before we do mine, I want to hear what you have on your list.
Okay, well, I came so prepared with all kinds of backups, expecting that you lovely folks would anticipate some of mine, and in the spirit of highlighting as many things as possible, I didn't want us to just all be saying the same things. And yet my top 5 have not yet been said by anyone, so that's exciting. The very first one that I want to shout out is Iris Says Goodbye, which is written by Margot Grieve and Ben Kopp. Folks who went to Fringe 2 years ago might recall Killing Time, the game show musical, which they also wrote, which I think was one of the standouts of that year. Such an amazing piece. A lot of the cast members from that are returning. It was just so funny, so clever. The music was great. They put out a cast album that I listened to for a very long time after. Should probably revisit at some point. But just the second that I saw that they had another show this year, and I was like, well, I'm definitely going to see that. There's no way of avoiding it. The plot, I believe, has like an interesting element of variability to it that, for those who saw Ages of Feeling at Soul Pepper and Luminato last year, Haley McGee's solo show, I believe it sort of evokes similar ideas of that. So just across the board, there's so much about that one that I think is very, very exciting. Number 2, similarly ones from 2 years ago, or returning artists from 2 years ago that got me very excited, is $$, Money, 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 which is by Shanice Stanislaus and Rachel Resnick. 2 years ago, they did a show called Mail Ordered, which was one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen at a Fringe. Definitely like a very high tier show in my memory of very great Fringe shows that I've seen over the years. The premise of that one was that Shanice plays a clown character named Lila who was trying to sell herself into a mail-ordered type marriage arrangement, and it was very audience interactive and had so many twists and turns. This time she's back with a co-clown, Rachel Resnick, and the two of them have devised this very interesting show about just the concept of money, and they are trying to crowdsource the audience to give them money to support a hypothetical Netflix series that they intend to make. So I think these are just like very exciting artists, and I'm so looking forward to what they have next. Next one, The Adding Machine, which is a 1923 expressionist play by Elmer Rice that has a plot that is somewhat similar to a lot of interestingly bureaucratic works by Franz Kafka. I always feel like you should try to see one adaptation of a very old thing at Fringe. We always think of Fringe as something that highlights like the new, the exciting, the bold, but it's really just a playground where people can do anything. And there actually are quite a few shows on offer this year that are these types of things, but this one seemed particularly exciting because it is an adaptation, but not of one that a lot of people seem to know about or are likely to know about. So there's a lot of room to both introduce people to something new and to show them something exciting in their bold adaptation when people aren't so precious about the source material itself. Also, Guillermo Verdecchia is involved in the project, I believe, as a dramaturg. So it's always exciting to see big artists like that putting their weight behind Fringe shows and really supporting these kinds of things. That's 3, right? Number 4. Quiz Icarus is one that I'm very excited about because I'm a big trivia nerd and a big Jeopardy nerd. And you know what's exciting when you're a Jeopardy nerd? Seeing people you know from Toronto theater show up on Jeopardy. And that's exactly what happened when Nam Nguyen was a Jeopardy contestant and a winner. And he's joined by Aaron Brown, who's also been on Jeopardy. And the two of them are hosting a trivia show for the lovely Fringe patrons. So that's very exciting. In past Fringe years, maybe last year, maybe the year before, Nam had hosted the like an event at the tent or at the hub of Fringe that has had like a pub trivia vibe, but it's really interesting that this is actually one of the shows that's on offer this year. So the second I saw that, I knew I have to see this. And last one, I feel very obliged to shout this out, is Zeitgeist, which Janine, you recently did an interview with my good friend Ben, who's the author of it. I feel like I have to shout this one out because I'm technically credited as a dramaturg on this one. Ben is a good friend of mine, and we've no, I wouldn't even say collaborate. It's like it's his play, but like he's shown me various versions of it over the years, and I do work as a dramaturg on the side, so I've been helping him refine the script over the years. I actually haven't seen the latest version of it. I haven't been involved at all in this Fringe iteration, but it's a very exciting show about just the ennui and angst of being a young person in this particular time and place that I've been so fortunate to be part of the development process of, and can't wait to see it finally get up on its feet.
Nice. I want to point out that Steve Fisher has let us know that People Suck, Just Like Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl, is a returning show, as in it's been performed at the Toronto Fringe in the past. Some of my picks have already been mentioned, but I'm going to mention them again anyway because I think it's important. If we're all aligned, then people should probably get tickets to these shows. But the first one on my list, and these are in no particular order for me, is Things My Dad Kept, which is a story about a woman who 12 years after her father died, she cleans out a drawer and discovers exactly how much he had documented her life as she was growing up. And so it's a story about grief and catharsis and death. And I think there's a few shows that deal with grief this year. Another one that's on my list, coincidentally, Adam Bailey, My Three Deaths. Adam Bailey is I would call him a Fringe stalwart. He has been on the Fringe circuit for many years. The first show he did was in Toronto, but he's toured extensively since then. And this is a show about the 3 times he died, 2 of them physically. And so he is a wonderful storyteller. And so I would recommend seeing his show to pretty much anyone. Adam probably is a show that's going to sell out. So if you haven't already, you should probably get tickets to that as soon as you can. Another one guaranteed to sell out is Confessions of a Red-Headed Coffee Shop Girl. 10 years ago, I did not get to see that show because I slept on tickets too long. And I missed my opportunity. And not only did that show sell out at Toronto, it then went on to the Edinburgh Fringe and sold out its entire month-long run in Edinburgh. So if there is a show that you're thinking, I don't know, should I see this one? Get tickets now while you can, because that is a show that if you wait too long, you will be out of luck. I also wanted to shout out Jimmy Hogg's The Potato King. And I think, and the reason why I wanted to shout out The Potato King is because Jimmy Hogg, as far as I recall, has not been back to Toronto for quite some time, but he is at other fringes across Canada, a draw and somebody that is that you should not miss as a storyteller, as a performer. So I highly recommend that you also check out The Potato King. And finally, I will choose String of Pearls, which is another show that Fuchsia Boston, who is the writer and a performer in, is going to be on an episode of one of my Fringe extras, and that is a show that's really about how power dynamics work, and what happens when new leadership comes into a theater rehearsal and into a theater company, and I find that one super fascinating as well. Does anybody have any honorable mentions that they weren't able to put in their 5, since I was cruelly very limiting? Alex, I see you waving, so why don't you go first?
Okay, so I want to see a dance show. They all looked really good, but Mutual Aim sounded like something I would be interested. It said it mixed satire and sincerity and just people dancing. I want that. Yes, give me that. Also, because my schedule. So I'm going to try to see all the magic-y ones in like one day. So I'll see Apothecary, and then also, what was that other one? Don't Fall In. I really do want to see that one. And I also want to see 100% Wizard, just because.
Listen, if anybody was thinking they wanted to check out some magic, Keith Brown's 100% Wizard is going to be another show that you must not sleep on. If you're thinking about shows to get tickets to, you really have to get tickets early to that one, because that's the way that it's like that is a show that is going to be it's going to sell out. Keith's shows always do, and so you absolutely should check that out. Any other honorable mentions?
I guess. Sure.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, since we're talking about magic anyway. I don't know if any of you saw last year at Fringe, a fellow by the name of Fish the Magician. He had a show in Tarragon. So he's coming back this year with a show called Fish Tales. His name is Rob Fishbaum. So Fish the Magician is his moniker as a stage magician. And I have this very weird personal history with this individual, because when I was, 11 years old, he performed at my older brother's bar mitzvah as a magic act. And I told this story when we reviewed his show last year on the podcast, but I was at the Fringe lottery party last year, and they called Fish the Magician, your show is in. And I'm like, oh, I know Fish the Magician. That's so weird and amazing. And little did I realize the guy sitting next to me, who I hadn't seen since I was 11, stands up and goes on stage and starts doing magic tricks. But I was sitting next to Fish the Magician this whole time. So I'm like, oh my God, I have to see this show. This is such a weird throwback. There was no objective way that I could review this, but I had such a great time watching. He's a very dynamic comedian, a very dynamic magician, and it was just like a real treat. My parents decided, who they never go to Fringe, they decided to go to Fringe to see Fish the Magician just because it was a weird, special family thing for us.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome.
I am so tickled by this story.
I love that story.
Janine, you smiled. Did you see his show last year?
Yes, I did. Yeah, Kyle and I went to that one, and it was the most delightfully unhinged magic show I've ever been to. It was perfection. Yeah, I loved it.
I love the name. I love the name Fish the Magician because I think that sets a particular tone for what you may be seeing. And I love that. Any other honorable mentions? Allison, do you have any? Oh, Janine, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If you don't mind, I just want to shout out some of the other shows from my future podcast guests, because Ryan thankfully covered both Zeitgeist and Ira Says Goodbye, but I have also interviewed a couple of people who are going to be in some of the other shows. One is a dance show, Temple of Desire. There's like a sort of like a TYA show at the end of Caliuga, and then regarding Antigone, all of those episodes are coming up, and I'm really excited. So I'm going to make it to most of them, and I'm really excited to see what I've been chatting to people about.
It is so difficult to see all the shows of people that you've been chatting with or talking to. It's so hard to make that schedule. Allison, any honorable mentions from you?
Yeah, I was interested in Sweet and Salty Burlesque, and also Nearly Departed by Kathy Boyd. She was on Canada's Got Talent. I used to produce comedy shows, so I'm familiar with her as a comedian and want to see what she does with this show as well. And what else do we have on this? Plan V, The Rise of Reverence. And I think those are my backups that I have on the list. But so many shows that I want to see. So many.
Steve Fisher is just a little bit ahead of me because Laura Ann Harris's Have Fun Kids is another one of the trilogy of shows about death and grief that I picked up on this year. We have 2 shows about potatoes, Potato, and the Potato King. We have 3 shows about death and grief. And these are sometimes the way that Fringe shows shake out. I sort of jumped in to see, I will be seeing Biddy Bat as one of my shows. And that just sort of, I think it was the name that made me choose it. But between those, I do want to say that Laura Ann Harris is, again, another reliable performer whose show you should buy tickets to early. Ryan.
Yeah, also in the spirit of Steve's question, the one that, Phil, you didn't just shout out, Sweet Action Theater, that's a bring your own venue show that has an identical cast or nearly identical cast to the Sweet and Salty Burlesque, if I'm getting the name correctly, that Allison, you just shouted out. So these are going to be very busy artists who are running back and forth between venues doing, I assume, a different show. I'm not exactly sure what the finer points of what makes these shows different from each other. But if you're interested in things like burlesque and clown and sketch comedy, I think you could probably do well to see either of those shows, or maybe both, if you'd like to apply some sort of comparative gaze to it.
Excellent.
There's a topic that it's a topic that just occurred to me, and one that I do want to address thanks to something that Ryan mentioned. And I want to talk about these additional venues. In another city, we would call them bring your own venue, or BYOV. Toronto has not had a BYOV system for quite some time. And this year, I've noticed that although we're doing like unconventional venues or that sort of thing, there's a number of venues which are doing something that hasn't been permitted before. And that's to have multiple shows at that venue, which is something Fringe frowned on and didn't allow in the past. Do you guys have any thoughts about BYOVs and how they work in Toronto as opposed to other Fringes?
I'm pretty new and pretty fresh, so I more would love to learn more about it than have an opinion on it.
I mean, historically, there was a period of time where there was a theater venue called Bread and Circus, and Bread and Circus created its own mini Fringe. They mostly did musicals at this particular venue. That is the venue at which My Mother's Lesbian Jewish Wiccan Wedding first premiered, which then went on. Mervis picked it up, and then without that, we would not have Come From Away. But that was the last time there was a purely bring your own venue where a theater could sort of create its own season. In other festivals across Canada, Montreal, Winnipeg, Edmonton, even some of the smaller festivals. They have theaters like that, which will sort of create their own venue. But Toronto hasn't had that since the days of Bread and Circus, and so it's sort of like it's been something that they've resisted or been against until quite recently. At least now we have a situation where there is like you can now have more than one show at a venue, which previously was completely verboten.
Yeah, I don't mind. I like being able to sort out my fringe not just by neighborhood, but by venue. Like last year, I think I camped out at Tarragon for 3 days straight because they had 3 venues within Tarragon, and there was enough shows that I wanted to see that I'm like, yeah, I can easily compile 3 days worth of shows plus the occasional meal break, to get that done. So I know this year, like Theatre Pass Marais is almost like exclusively doing musicals, and that's really cool. It's like at least we know that like that's where we're going for a lot of those. But no, there's something really great to me about just being able to camp out at a single venue and see a whole bunch of shows, especially when the TTC is less than lovingly reliable, and especially with this year the 504, everything's down at Soul Pepper, but the streetcar that gets you to Soul Pepper is under construction right now, so it gets diverted. So it's going to be interesting, right? Like I like being able to plant myself and not have to worry about crisscrossing all over town.
Not just the streetcar that gets you to Soul Pepper, but to get from Soul Pepper to Theatre Pass Marais or even to Tarragon. We are going to have to make sure that we factor in extra travel time this year, at least because of the construction.
I have left myself hours, plural, in my schedule if I have to change venue locations, because there's a couple days where I have to, or I've planned that for the weekend when I can have the car, because then it's like I will happily bounce all over the city if I can drive, but if it's going to be me on my feet with the transit, no, we will plan. Thank you. That's smarter than me. I decided to use the prayer method of traveling between venues, where I just sort of hope that it's all going to work out. Dear TTC gods, please let me get to my show.
Please let me get to the show. That actually has. I remember a number of years ago, post-COVID, I ran into Janine at the Aki studio. I was going to run to see another show. The streetcar failed me completely, and I had to bail on the show I was going to see. And that's just the lottery that is the TTC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I made that mistake last year of booking my shows in I scheduled them and which ones I wanted to see and not by venue. So I was jumping around the entire city, all of Fringe, and then I would start at this venue, go to this venue, go back to this venue, but I could have just stayed there all day. So this year, more strategic planning with the venue and shows is definitely on my to-do list.
Yeah, or like at least the neighborhoods, right? Like I made myself a little like cheat sheet of like which venues are close to one another. See, we got
the
this.
Fringe spreadsheets are out.
So that then at least like there's a lot of them that are absolutely walkable to one another. So I would way rather be like, yeah, I can bounce between these, but at least I'm on my own 2 feet. Yeah. And I know I can hoof it in that 12 minutes or whatever it says, right?
That would be fun.
Yeah, this is really good advice, because I just wrote down the plays I liked and the times that worked for me, and I didn't even consider the venue. So I should go back and look. I haven't.
That's what I did last year.
And like fully about which one I'm going to at which time, but I really should look at what venue it is and make sure.
I think
it is planning that needs to be done. It's funny. You guys you're mentioning spreadsheets. I have a story from like back in late 90s. I've dated myself. I'm an old man. Let's get that out of the way. And I was at a theater, and John Kaplan, the late, great John Kaplan, who at the time I think may have been the only Fringe reviewer, came out of his show, knelt down, reached into his bag, pulled out what I thought was a book, and he started to unfold it. And it was his analog spreadsheet of shows and his plan for the day. So digital certainly saves us a lot of pocket space, but spreadsheets are a long tradition as far as it goes with scheduling, going to see shows.
There you go, Ryan. We're in like the best possible company of us of our
Absolutely.
like 50,000 little sheets of paper.
Absolutely. I want to jump into the topic that we put a pin in earlier, and that is Next Stage. This is the first time that Next Stage has been wrapped into the Fringe Festival. Previously, it was the coldest Fringe Festival, the coldest theater festival of the year in January, and then I think it moved to October, and now this is the first time that we are seeing it as part of the Toronto Fringe. In fact, the show, Laura Ann Harris's show, Have Fun Kids, is part of Next Stage. What do you guys think about the about Next Stage as part of Fringe?
Mm-hmm.
Janine.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah. I'm only a little disappointed because I go, oh, well, now what do I have to look forward to in the fall? Like, I really enjoyed, because like basically how I used to do Next Stage, or I did for the past couple of years, is I, again, just sort of plant myself at Buddies. They would usually do 6 shows. I would see 3 the one night, 3 the other, and I didn't get home till like 11 o'clock, but whatever. And I could get the whole thing done, get the reviews out, and then it's, and then I've taken in the whole festival. Now trying to work it into Fringe is like, if Fringe is already overwhelming without being like, oh yeah, but then the Next Stage shows. Like, shoot, yeah, I got to make sure I get into those as well. But at least they're all at Soul Pepper, so that makes it a little bit easier. I think I am still seeing all 4 over, like I see like one day and then 3 the next. But like, it's just, yeah, I'm going to miss that in October. Those couple, that week is going to come up and I'm like, I normally have things to do.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that I won't miss huddling in a tent in January.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been like that in a while.
It hasn't been like, I'm old. So my memory.
Yes, I remember those days too. But thankfully, ever since it moved to Buddies, it's been a little more acclimate.
I don't think I have to say I haven't been able to attend Next Stage since they did it and started doing it in the fall. But again, I also kind of felt that the fall was a little too on the heels of Fringe. I kind of liked having a few months distance from the Toronto Fringe to the Next Stage festival. I had seen shows that were at the Toronto Fringe get another life at Next Stage, which was is a great way to sort of like take a show to a next level. But look, anything that gets us more shows on the stage is good by me. Any other thoughts on Next Stage?
Yeah, kind of complicated thoughts about just what it means spiritually for the Fringe to have a curated selection folded into it, because, like you said, Phil, Next Stage was often exciting where things that got their start at Fringe, or artists who got their start at Fringe and had their talents and exciting shows recognized, could have a new place to go beyond the Fringe. And I think, while I completely understand the likely budgetary constraints that are responsible for not having 2 festivals operated in the year, I think there's a bit of a double-edged sword about the problematics of having the selection in there. One, it's basically highlighting these shows as, these are the good ones. Fringe is a crapshoot, a lottery, anybody can get anything in there, but these are the ones you gotta see. They've been curated, and that's fine when it's a separate festival that's just like, oh yeah, I would like to see a curated festival of good shows, but I do worry that they will draw attention away from the more curated selection, or the uncurated selection rather, of the lottery shows. And the other side of that is I worry that it could also deflect attention away from the Next Stage shows themselves, because there's just so many things to see in Fringe, and unless you are adamant on, I have to see the Next Stage shows because I think those are the important ones, then I worry that they're not going to get the same kind of audiences they would have as they have when they are in their own segmented series later on.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that as an issue. And I think I actually hadn't considered the fact that you have the difference between lottery shows and curated shows, which is certainly something to take into account for how these things shake out in the future. Anybody else with thoughts on Next Stage?
Yeah, I do wish it was a separate thing. I don't like the idea of it at the same time as Fringe. We'll see how it works out because of the already mentioned reasons. I did interview the two the co-leads of Fringe. I have that interview coming out on Thursday, and they did talk about it. October wasn't really working, and as well as they had hoped, and so they're trying this out. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it feels like an extra stress when Fringe is already a little bit stressful when you're trying to see as many things as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Alex.
I was just going to say, I didn't really know that there was a difference, and that, I mean, I knew, but I didn't really, I don't know, I guess. And then just looking at Laura Ann Harris's show, it's really, I'm really grateful she's making this show that's written by Jordan McCanno, posthumously, I guess. Like, I'm really, thank you for, I'm like looking forward to seeing this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly, that is another one of those catharsis shows, because I think it's a catharsis for Laura, as well as anybody who knew Jordan. And also, I mean, let's face it, anybody who knows somebody who died by suicide. It's going to be a show. That's why, like, you know, you've got that show, you've got Things My Dad Kept, and Adam Bailey, My Three Deaths. It's the death trilogy at the Toronto Fringe, I suppose, or the death cycle. I'm not sure.
The life cycle, perhaps.
Oh, the life cycle. Ooh,
I like that.
that's good. They
That
should
also
team
just
up.
sounds like I need to remember to pack a little pack of Kleenex in my bag. Like, that's gonna have to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I like doing like a video of like, here's what I'm packing in my great big bag of everything to bring for Fringe. Apparently, that's gonna have to be a small pack of Kleenex.
Yes,
just in case.
this year, especially where these shows are concerned, make sure that you've packed a little package of
Yeah,
Kleenex.
when I was thinking of what shows I want to see, it's like I want to see if I want funny ones, I want a dance one, and I want something that's going to make me cry. And I hadn't really chosen that one, and I guess now I've chosen that one.
You have not chosen that one yet.
You have some choices.
Yeah,
You definitely have some choices. One of the things that we should move on to is venues. We sort of talked about the Young Center as a venue, but the thing that I find interesting about that is I was just looking at the map today, and I was thinking 3 theaters as well as a hub. It's 4+ Kids Fringe, so it's 5 venues in that theater. So you could plant yourself at Soul Pepper for a day, and there's food there, so that also becomes a benefit. But also from there's also the Alumni Theater and the Aki Studio in walking distance, so you don't have to go too far. I'm very happy to see the Helen Gardner Felon Playhouse back in the rotation. I feel like I missed that one, and I never performed there, but something about having that theater back is kind of I don't know, heartwarming. What do you guys think about the venues this year, Ryan?
Well, I think to your point about having the HGP Playhouse back is U of T used to put up like 3 or 4 different venues that they had theaters all over campus, and that created a sense of hubness to the Fringe, also because it's also close to Honest Ed's where the hub already was, and then you had things like Randolph and Annex, and then it's not too far from Tarragon, and then at other times you had the St. Vlad Center, which for the past few years has been where the Kids Fringe are. There was very much central Toronto around U of T, around Bath and Bloor kind of hub, and that works out very well for me because I actually live very close to that area, and all of the things that are at the HGP Playhouse and Tarragon are basically either the first or last thing that I see in a day before I then ship off to Soul Pepper or somewhere else in the East End or Theatre Pass Marais and then see a bunch of things there and then come back and like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. I will see something at Tarragon and then walk home. So it's interesting. Steve had a comment in here about how spread out everything has been this year, and that's been a lot of the discourse around it, because even though it feels like it is centralizing itself in the East End, the fact that it is not entirely there does create this sense of fracturedness, even if it is bringing back some remnants of the old hub, and it's almost like there's a central Toronto versus East Toronto feud perhaps happening beneath the surface of this. Who could say? But
I will say that it used to be that Fringe had some pretty specific borders for its venues. Like if you were thinking about a non-traditional venue, at one point it couldn't be further east than Bathurst, and it couldn't be like, it had very specific borders. And so it was, although going from Tarragon to Factory was a bit of a race, it was doable. Steve is absolutely right. This is a challenge. It does spread the venues out in a way that I think is kind of new for the Fringe to be this spread out. Oh, there was that one year where they had like Crow's Theater as Crow's Streetcar as the Eastern venue, but now there's even more of a split. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, and now Video Cabaret too, even further east than the main hub, which is going to be a difficult one. You could kind of it's like about a 30-minute walk or a 20-minute streetcar from Soulpepper to get there, but it's not as convenient as the two walking distance venues that you mentioned are also kind of right there. So I've planned to hold this as my Video Cab day, the one day where everything I want to see at Video Cab is playing on the same day. I'm just going to hang out there for that day and then probably see something at Tarragon later that evening. Because that's how
it is a tough one. That is a tough one because when we had the shows at Crow's Nest Streetcar, that venue would have been perfect. But that's not happening now. So it is probably one of the more difficult ones to get to. Janine.
Yeah, and just the other one that's way out, like in Leslieville, is Artists Play, which is a really cool, like very funky venue. I went there for a Talk is Free theater show. But so that's where Almost Ever After is going to be, which while I'm very glad that Andrew Suck's musicals are not going to be at Trinity St. Paul's, because as stunning as that venue is, there is zero air circulation. And when it is the middle of July and you pack enough people into a church, no, thank you. I've nearly passed out, I think, every time I've seen a show there. So I'll be happy for the potential of some like temperature control, but at the same time, yeah, it's a real consideration. I'm with Ryan that I had to like really plan and leave the space for. Okay, if I'm here, how long is it actually going to take me? Because like it says 20 minutes, okay, but like how long is it actually going to take me? Probably close to like 30 if that streetcar doesn't show up. So, you have to really plan and book for it.
Yeah, you're certainly going to need a buffer for your transportation between venues this year, especially because of the construction, not just construction on King Street, but the entire blockage of Queen Street, which throws everything into chaos as well. But do we have any other venue thoughts? All right. Actually, Steve had an interesting thought. And that was if Next Stage Programming has replaced Fringe TO's selected fundraiser show programming. And I don't know. We didn't come up in the conversations that I was having. Because this used to be something that Fringe would do, is they would select some specific shows to sort of feature, and those shows would act as a fundraiser show within the festival. And the artists would split with the Fringe 50-50. But I don't know if this is sort of replacing that this year, or if it's entirely separate. Has anybody heard anything, Janine?
Well, I was just gonna say, is that like related to or separate from the like Best of Fringe thing that happens after Fringe?
Oh, that was separate from it. It was something that happened during Fringe, where there were shows that sort of, I mean, listen, I was in a couple of festivals and there were some rumblings about the fact that this show that's got this main stage space and a bunch of really great performance times did not get drawn in the lottery. And you find out that they are doing a 50-50 with the Fringe. And sometimes they were upfront about it and sometimes they weren't. I don't know if this replaces that. I haven't heard anything about that.
I think Steve is bringing to light something that's kind of interesting, like the spiritual dilemma that I brought up of how do you highlight these certain shows when the ethos of Fringe is that anyone has the same chance as everyone, is that it was kind of never quite the case, as lovely as that sounds as an ideal, that some of these types of shows that operated as the fundraiser, and honestly, they were often some of the best shows you'd see at Fringe because they were really good at picking artists that people already knew and liked. Like, I know, don't quote me on some of the specifics of these, but I think like when Morrow and Jasp used to have a show in Fringe every year, that was often the case because they knew that everybody loves Morrow and Jasp and we would come see them. And that was a good way to help sort of finance some of Fringe. I think part of the question here is that if we don't have shows like that this year and the Next Stage series is kind of occupying that same conceptual space, is it having the same half of the profits go to Fringe format? And I don't know how that works. I don't know how the financial models behind these things work, but it's an interesting question of to what extent curation has always been present in Fringe and how that is part of the financial infrastructure that helps the festival run.
I'm not certain about how that is shaking out, but I think it's a very interesting, and it will shake out over Fringe. I think we'll find out more over the festival, and we'll see how that works. Maybe, I think having a curated festival within Fringe might take the bad taste out of some people's mouth that the secret fundraiser shows would sometimes take on.
Actually, Steve is bringing up something here that the fundraiser shows had less performances, usually 4 or 5 compared to 6 or 7. And yes, they would be big draws, arguably choice of venues and time slots. I did notice that Emilio's A Million Chameleons, the Adam Francis Prue show, only has 4 shows on the program for this year. And he is an artist that many people like if they've seen some of his other interesting puppet shows. So perhaps that's an example of the fundraiser model here. But again, don't quote me on that because I
think
know.
That one may not be. I think that
really?
Just might be a measure of how busy Adam is this year. Because I know that right now, I think he's in Chicago and he was in Orlando. And I think he's just moving through as many fringes as possible this year. So good on him. And once Fringe season is over, I hope he gets to sleep. I do want to talk about something that is maybe a little bit controversial, because I can see both sides of this, and that is the price of tickets. We have gone from the price of tickets being like at its height maybe $12 to $18 or I think $23.75 for a Next Stage show. Now, the reason I can see both sides of this is I know that for many years, a lot of Fringe artists were begging the festivals to increase the ticket price. They were, especially traveling artists, were spending a lot of money on travel, board. It's been harder and harder to get billets throughout Fringe. Even local artists are spending more than they were before to afford rehearsal spaces and all of the things that they need to pay for. So definitely I understand that fact. On the other side, I also feel like it means that, the artists may be struggling, but so are the people who are buying the tickets. They are going to be able to see fewer shows. And that is the cost of having a higher ticket price. I don't know what you guys think of that. I don't have, again, like I said, I see both sides, and I don't think I have a perfect answer. I'm curious about your thoughts on ticket pricing. Janine.
So until you had brought up in sort of like our pre-show, you were like, I want to talk about ticket prices. I was like, oh, what's Phil talking about? And then opened up my program and looked, and I went, oh my God, what? Okay. So for one thing, I mean, I'm with you. I get it. These folks are, you get paid peanuts, and you get paid based on like how many people show up. And that's a lot of pressure. But the fact that so Fringe has decided to roll Next Stage into Fringe, but then they'll charge you more for a Next Stage ticket. I'm like, wait, whoa. I thought this was part of this. If it's its own thing, then cool. You can charge whatever you want. But I thought this was part of this. So that's, and I mean, when I was buying my tickets today, I did see that for Next Stage, there's tiered levels of pricing. You can pay there's like a $15, $20, and $25 or something like that amount. They've also added in pay what you can performances this year, which I think is really awesome. At least that gives people an opportunity that if you can only pay $5, at least that's there. But like, then you're going to have to hunt for those performances, right? Like some shows have a whack of them. Some of them have like 2. So it's difficult because I know, like Phil, you were talking about how a lot of art gets made for other artists to come and see, and yet we are broke, like, because we work in the arts. So it's a really weird, like, snake eating its own tail situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex.
I don't know, just as like a consumer, meaning I'm probably going to get a pass that gives me a few, and then probably try to go to some of the pay what you cans, as well as the pass of however many they get. I get. I just feel like the cost of everything has gone up, so therefore it just makes sense that the price would go up. But if I could pay full price for everything, I would, because I think all the artists deserve all the money, and that's what I think.
I think absolutely, I agree with you. The artists deserve all the money. The difficulty becomes, I know people who they were looking at their ticket price, and when the tickets are almost $10, their thought is, but I'm taking a risk on a show. This show was chosen by random. When the tickets were $12, I didn't feel so bad about like maybe seeing a show that might not be awesome. But now I'm paying almost $20. People also, I mean, the audiences have less money to throw around. It's a difficult topic, and I'm completely of two minds on this. Anybody else have thoughts on that topic? Alison.
I do. I just think when you put it in perspective, the ticket is a price of now a McDonald's meal. I feel like, or if you want to put it in like theater terms, you can see 3 Fringe shows or 1 Mirvish or 1 Stratford performance. And honestly, I just saw Macbeth. I would rather go see 3 Fringe shows because Macbeth wasn't even that great.
Okay.
So
No, we need to. I mean, that is a topic for another day, and I would love to have that conversation with you. I'm sure I would have opinions on that. I
do like the pay what you can option. I think that's fantastic, and the artists, you can opt in. Like the shows opted in to pay what you can, so that it was, and I think about half of the shows opted in to at least have 1 pay what you can show at the Fringe. I think that's a really great way to go. Again, I think that the next stage should be a separate thing from Fringe. I think that it would really benefit them from having it at a later date. But yeah, I think the price is fair for for the times. Like everything has gone up. As I said, it's a McDonald's meal now. Like those used to be dirt cheap too, and now you get a meal and it's like $18 and you're like, what happened?
You bring up an excellent point, and that is the price of everything. And we do listen, I will say artists, they deserve to be paid what they're worth, and this is not what they're worth. They're worth more, but again, this is Fringe. I really hope people see the prices and do not are not reluctant to see shows when already people are having to struggle to pay for other things. Yeah. But as Steve points out, the way to ameliorate single-toast tickets is passes, which is a great way to go if you're thinking about seeing shows. You can get a 6-ticket pass for $107. Again, as Alison points out, you'd be lucky to get a Mirvish ticket for that price. So that's certainly something to look at. Any other thoughts on ticket prices?
Yeah, like Alison, I hear what you're saying about this inflation argument, but I think I would be surprised if most fringers take inflation into account when they decide how many things they're going to see. I think traditionally people are like, I will set aside $100 for fringe shows and see however many I can see with that. And if the prices are going up, the sad reality is that if they don't adjust for inflation in that purchasing decision, they will see less shows. And that's, I think, very unfortunate because, yes, it does put more stock in the reviews or the returning artists that people have name recognition for. And I think the people who, I don't want to say suffer because that sounds melodramatic, but who really get the short end of the stick on this are the unknown artists trying something out who don't have any kind of name recognition. Maybe somebody who gets a bad review and then suddenly that review means a lot more because it's a much weightier purchasing decision than it would have been. It's like, yeah, $10, I'll see that. It sounds like an interesting premise.
It's definitely an interesting topic, and one that I think that we're probably going to be talking about next year, maybe the year after. Ticket prices aren't coming down, so it's something that is going to continue on. One of the things that I think is often one of the things about Toronto Fringe in particular that is a little bit different from other fringes is a lot of people are looking for the next show, the next Kim's Convenience, the next Kink in Her Hair, the next Drowsy Chaperone, the next My Mother's
the next Monks.
Yeah, the next Monks. Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, like, with that search, as people want to be a person who can look back and say, I was in the audience during Toronto Fringe when Kim's Convenience premiered, and can talk about that magic. People want to have that moment. It does mean that I think some people wait a little longer in the Fringe season to go and see shows. They wait until the reviews are out to see what is picking up, what's the hit. And I think there is a certain reward inherent in like taking a risk on a show in the early days and just like choosing something because it sounds interesting rather than because it's like the next big thing. I'm curious if any of you can think of a show that you've seen in previous years that you went to see early and it was a gem of a show that you never could have expected. And if you can't, that's also okay. But I see Alison raises her hand.
Last year, just the first thing that comes to mind, which I know just did their Montreal Fringe, was Pause. And I went in absolutely blind and didn't know what to expect. And I fell in love. I laughed. I cried. It was everything that you wanted from theater. So I'm so happy to see that it's still doing its thing. I went to another show of it, another performance of it a month or so ago, and then it was doing Montreal Fringe. I think it's just wrapping up now. And so Pause was definitely one of those shows that stuck out for me. You're muted.
Thank you for that. I am muted. Anybody else have a thought? Have any one of those? It's a difficult thing because sometimes I will be hard pressed sometimes to think of like what I saw last year, let alone to a few years ago. Ryan, did you raise your hand? Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I'm stewing on this a bit because, like, yes, I see so many Fringe shows each year that for a while you do remember the ones that stand out, but it's kind of hard to think of them. I think you're asking a canon formation question essentially here. And I think that this has been on my mind a lot lately, especially in relation to certain reviews I've written lately. But I think, yeah, when we look at something like Kim's Convenience or The Drowsy Chaperone, and we're like, yes, this started at a Fringe and it's special. I think the thing that people need to remember is that if it's going to be that thing, yes, you want to have that core memory of I was there on the ground floor, but it'll come back. You'll have ample opportunity to see the things that crystallize into this is an important one that you don't want to miss. So I don't think you should necessarily be holding out for those kinds of things. I know I maybe tipped my hand a little bit earlier by saying that Monks was one from last year's Fringe. That was I don't know what I was expecting going in, but it just defied all expectations. And it has already come back twice in Toronto alone, just in the year since Fringe at various short stints. And I think I saw that another regional theater is programming it soon. And, in my review of it, I proposed that it should probably be on CBC. So like there will be a future for something like Monks that I think is quite revealing when we kind of glom onto something of like, this is the one that everybody should, if not see during Fringe, keep your eyes peeled because these artists are doing something special and unique.
It is super interesting to think about that because you are right. Those shows that become like that thing, they are coming back. Kim's Convenience, for example, will come back. There are shows that are lightning in a bottle, and they're at the Toronto Fringe once, and you will think about them years later and wonder like, why didn't that show go somewhere? Because you loved it so much. Alex, go ahead.
I just want to say, like for the artists who like might be thinking, like, try not to put that kind of pressure on yourself and just like enjoy having a spot in Fringe and getting to do the thing that you love to do and show this thing that you've worked on. And even if it's just a moment of time, it still matters. And I mean, even if only a handful of people see it, it still happened. You're still an artist. You're still doing it, and good on you.
Yeah, I always say at the end, like, you did it. You did a show at the Toronto Fringe, and that's a sprint. That Toronto Fringe is a sprint, and you did a show, and you made it all the way through, and you should be proud of yourself. Yeah. Janine, did you have thoughts on that?
People.
Yeah, for sure. I was just because I was thinking, okay, so first of all, I totally agree with Ryan about Monks, because like what I loved is like, so I saw it at Fringe last year, and then when it was at the theater center, what I really enjoyed was the number of partners that people had brought with them. Like, my fiance had absolutely no choice as to whether he was going to go see Monks or not, because he didn't see it at Fringe. It was like, you need to experience this show. And then I looked around, and basically everybody had done the same thing of like bringing an extra person because it was just that. And yeah, it's going to be at Prince Edward County Theater, so that's really exciting. But for me, I think one of the things that I'm excited about is a show that I saw at Next Stage last year has actually gotten picked up at Tarragon. So Bremen Town was on at Next Stage last year, and it's going to be one of the first shows of the Tarragon season. So again, that's another one that I said to Kyle right away, like, hey, cool, you're coming to this with me, because that's a show that stuck with me big time. Like at Next Stage, like I was talking about that show for weeks afterwards, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad to see it getting that next step. I think anytime that we see a show that it's like, oh, we saw this in a baby version, and like now it's at Tarragon, how exciting. Like, it's cool as a theater critic to be like, oh cool, I'm gonna get to go and see that again and reevaluate. Let's see what it looks like on this stage. Let's see what it looks like with not a shoestring budget. Like, let's go. So it's exciting.
Absolutely. Just as we start to wrap things up here, does anybody have any final thoughts about this year's Toronto Fringe? Anything we haven't covered that is a burning thought that you want that you want to talk about? I think Janine looks like.
Oh gosh, no, I'm okay. I just like how you put that. No, I just, you know what? I'm excited. Like, now that I got my scheduling done, I'm actually really excited. The scheduling is like the anxiety part of it for me. Now I'm like, cool, I have a plan. My tickets are on my phone. Let's go. Let's just like go have some fun. I just need to stock up on snacks, and then I'll be good to go. Because like, number one tip, everybody, bring snacks. Bring snacks in your purse.
Snacks and water.
Snacks and water. Yeah, we've got like the big boy water bottle and some snacks, and I'll be good to go. And some sunscreen, because you will be waiting outside in the sun, and so don't get burnt. But like, yeah, no, I'm just really excited. It was really cool to get the opportunity to talk about this with you guys. We all have such like different perspectives and a different sort of relationship with Fringe, and so it's really exciting to get to chat with you about it like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as as sort of a last thought, I want to just make a note. If anybody is out and you're around Fringe and you see me around, I have Stageworthy buttons. So if you want a button just come up and talk to me. I will have them, and I'll
Heck yeah.
happily give you a Stageworthy button. Not just the folks here in this room, but also anybody who's around listening. Happy to share those. I do want to just, as we're sort of coming to a close here, I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to subscribe to and listen to all of these amazing podcasts. Creative Full Time, A View from the Box, Being Dramatic, and Cup of Hemlock podcast. Just if you have the opportunity, make sure that you snap a picture of the QR code or search for them on your favorite podcast app. Do not miss these shows. This is here, as I have assembled. As I said earlier, this is the Justice League, the who's who, the creme de la creme of Toronto podcasts. So I want to thank you all for joining me here. Thanks for your thoughts, and thank you for being part of this Fringe preview.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
organizing
much.
this.
Thanks.